Yeah, I've already.
Oh, yeah.
Here we are.
And we're live. Hello.
And we're live.
All right. Sorry about the time delay, everybody. We went through some tech problems. And yeah, so obviously Durbin
I'm
is
stuck on a cell phone.
stuck on a cell phone. But yeah, without further ado, let's just kind of jump in this. We are doing Dune spoilers. We have Rahman from Hit or Miss TV. We have Durbin from Durbania, and Owl from Dark Side Reviews. Are you guys ready to talk about some Dune spoilers?
Oh, yes.
Let's do it, man.
All right. Well, we're gonna start into my intro in 3, 2. All right, Vermont.
Sorry.
Don't apologize. I love it. So just to give everybody and the audience a little breakdown of how we're going to do this. We are going to talk about, as soon as I bring up the right file, we are going to talk about what we like, what we're on the fence about, what we don't like, and then we'll give a final grading. So, and Durbin, this is your first time here, and since I didn't have a chance to tell you backstage, I'm just going to tell you right quick. When you do the grade, when you tell us the grade, I have a special little video that plays right after you give your grade. So just a little FYI.
Nice. Well, that's good to know.
But with that being said, this is a spoiler talk. Spoilers. So that means if you haven't watched the movie yet, probably shouldn't watch this. But you can watch it. You can't.
Stevie, I had to cut you off. Let me go last because I'm going to try and switch my camera settings. See, I think I actually know what's going on.
My man.
Nice.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Let me.
Stevie, can I just say something before we get cracking?
Yeah.
I just want to say I don't do this sort of stuff normally and say this sort of stuff, but this is a pleasure to have this guy here,
Mr. Durbania.
I've not seen this guy.
Thank you.
I've not seen him in ages, and I love this guy to bits, and I'm just really glad
it's been a long time. Thank you, Ramon.
Man.
I'm happy to be back with you guys. It's been way too long. So even though my laptop is deciding to make me come in fuzzy and I have to do this on a cell phone, it's worth it to be here.
Yeah, exactly, well, it's one of those days, man. We're just cluttered with tech difficulties today. That's okay.
It's live. It's part of the fun of it. Everybody's watching, going, "I'm glad that's not my problem," and they're being entertained by it.
Exactly.
Fair enough. All right, so Al Seward is doing his thing, trying to fix his problem on his end. But why don't we dive into what we like about this movie? Because I feel. Well, I don't feel, I know I'm going to be standing on a very lonely island here because you gentlemen, let's just dive into what, Ramon, tell us what you like about this movie.
What do I love about this movie? I love, obviously, the visuals, which everyone's going to be talking about first and foremost, probably. The visuals of this movie are spectacular, very kind of along the same lines of what it gave us with Blade Runner 2049. It's just magnificent. It feels very, very grand. I also loved the casting. I thought the casting of the film was brilliant. I thought the music was brilliant. I know I'm going to upset some people saying this, but I know it's 2 hours, 15 minutes. I would have sat there for another 2 hours just because I enjoy
me too.
Just because I enjoy it. Kind of like when we was watching Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, just because I'm enjoying something so much. Like I even done it when I done a reaction to the movie on the channel. It got to the part where it all kicks off between them all, the Harkonnens and the Atreides, and I stopped and I looked at I stopped and looked at the time, and I was like, yes, I've got another hour left, because I was like panicking. I was thinking it's coming towards the end, and I was a bit worried. So in general, there isn't a lot that I dislike about this movie. Maybe later on we can get to a few things, like just being picky, just like personal taste, but I can't really pick anything out and go, I hated that. But in general, I loved this film. I've really, really enjoyed it.
All right. All right, Durbin, what did you like about this movie?
Oh man. Okay, so visuals has been taken, and like Ramon said, everybody's going to say the visuals. So that goes without saying. My absolute favorite part was the sound design. I mean, from the musical score to the sound effects of things, it was its own character, and it added this quality to it that otherwise wouldn't have. I mean, right in the beginning, where it opens with that weird noise and it says "Dreams are from the deep," and then you get the Warner Brothers logo. I remember sitting in the theater and I was whispering something to Laura, and then that sound hit, and it scared the ever-living snot out of me, and it caught my attention, and I turned right back to the screen. So I really appreciated that. It was just something that grabs you from the beginning, and it pulls you in. Whenever they did the voice, for instance, like, I thought that was so well done. And again, I jumped out of my skin when he yelled at his mother, Jessica, saying, "You did this to me!" Like, when he turned and did the voice on her. I mean, it makes you, the movie itself to me was good enough that it makes you want to lean forward and listen anyway. But then it's unfair when they make the sound that crazy loud and you jump 10 feet back. But I loved it. So for me, the sound design was my favorite part. The other thing is, and here's where I'm on an island, Stevie, I thought Blade Runner 2049 was boring. And I liked the musical score and the visuals. And that's all I can say I liked about Blade Runner 2049. So
Right.
I went into this movie with super low expectations, but I like that it moved slow, but it also got to the action. And when it got there, it was good. But in that moving slow, it had a good story. And I think the pace was helping me be brought into the story more. So that's what I missed out of Blade Runner 2049. And that's what I got out of Dune. And I really liked it.
Well, I have a question for you, Durbin.
Yes.
What did you know about Dune? Like, did you know the history of Dune before going into this?
I did, because you know my mom, Steve. She
yeah.
loves crazy stuff like this. I grew up on the 1984 movie. So I have watched that movie so much. And every time I've watched it, I immediately forgot what happened in it when it was over, because it was so dumb and so weird that it would go in one ear and out the other. I couldn't comprehend this movie. So after watching Dune, the 2021, I went back to watch the 84 version, and it's still dumb. But I went, oh, I can follow this now, because I had something better that I could latch onto. And now I can kind of pick up, and I actually kind of started picking up on things that I think were explained a little better in the beginning of Dune 1984 that weren't explained as well in the movie. But there's a part 2 coming, so it's probably all going to come together.
Yes, part 2 just announced earlier today. Yeah.
Did you notice as well, Durbin, on the original, when you're watching the original movie, I think the first act of the film, I think, is really good. I think it starts off really well, and
I think so too.
And it feels like they got to a certain stage, and it's like the studio have gone, right, we've got to cram everything in it, and there's a lot of cuts, like goes to hit it.
For instance, every Messiah scene where you actually see him acting as this Messiah and stepping in his calling, they rush through it. It's like, why would you do that? You built to this, and now you're rushing it?
The only way to explain it to people that have not seen it, it's like the one we've just seen, the 2021 movie. It's like part 2 maybe being the last 15 minutes of the movie and cramming 2 hours of filming to 20 minutes. That's what the original Dune is like. It just gets to a stage and then it just flies through all of this stuff, and you're like, what's going on? And it just doesn't add up.
You're talking about the original?
Yeah. It the last sort of 15 minutes just goes on a bit of a crazy one at the end, and you're like, okay. Like, where you kind of like, where's this? That's kind of another reason I appreciated this. I know some people are not crazy on it being split into 2, but it's another reason I kind of like it, because it gets to where it's got, and I'm kind of like, if the other part was out now, I would have watched it straight away.
I would have too.
Yeah.
Well, it builds the characters this way, whereas the first one, even when they took more time in Act 1, it didn't draw me into the characters like this one did. I felt like, because of its pace, because how it was telling the story, I got to know the characters better. I didn't feel like I got to know them in the 84 movie.
All right. Well, thank you, Durbin. I appreciate you letting us know how you feel about that. Mr. Al, how are we coming into you, buddy? Everything a little bit better?
It's still a little bit of choppy, but I think if as long as I'm coming in okay with you guys, I'm all right.
All right. Well, if you could.
Right. So the more I watch this movie, I think the better it gets.
Same.
I do think that seeing it in the theater is helpful. I know, Stevie, you and I might be at odds about that, but I think it's a really complex story to tell. And I think it is hard to appreciate if you have just like no familiarity with the source material, because it really is a complex story. But what I think makes this movie so good is I think everything that you all have said, everything that Durbin and Ramon have said, but I think the cinematic storytelling gives this movie a whole bunch of weight, because the pacing in it is slow. But to me, the reason I enjoyed it so much is I just thought that visually it was so immersive, and I just love the shot selections, and I love what Denis does with giving these. I mentioned this in my own review, almost always giving these kind of wide to medium close-up shots. We did have some close-up shots, but he's a master at utilizing everything in the frame to make it really immersive. And it felt, almost every scene felt grand. It felt epic. And then when you add Zimmer's score to it, it just felt colossal.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, I didn't see it in theaters, but I agree with you.
Yeah,
sure.
So those are one of the, I mean, that's what I really loved about it. And then when I kind of cheated, so I guess make of this what you will, but then I watched him on Vanity Fair talking about some of the cinematic choices that he made, and then it even got better when I saw it again, because I was like, wow, So
I saw, I had a friend of mine, and trust me, my review, I'm not getting just flack from you guys. I did my open mic Sunday, and people are like, Steve, how do you know? And like one of the guys was bringing up, that Vanity Fair thing, and like, you got to understand this. I'm like, everybody from all angles of my life have been attacking me.
I think with Dune, it's like Durban. I'd seen the original quite a lot as a youngster because my dad was mad into David Lynch stuff. So I've seen and I'm a fanatic for David Lynch's movies. Dune is not one of his good movies, really, but I've watched it a lot. And when this one was coming out, as much as I liked the story, I'll be honest with you, I was excited for it, but I was kind of like, is this going to be another disaster? And I'm thinking, the guy who's done Blade Runner's done it. It's a massive budget. This is like, I kind of see the movie as a bit of a risk, because it's, again, like I think I said to Al before we started streaming, it's an acquired taste kind of film. It's not like you, Steve. It's not going to be that every, like, you know what I mean? It's not going to be one of those movies everyone's going to watch it and go, oh man, what a great movie. So I was surprised that it got the go ahead in the first place, and I was a bit like, and I think that's probably why I enjoyed it so much, because I didn't expect a lot from it, and that's why I think I enjoyed it so much.
And that's where I was with it 100%. I mean, I watched the sci-fi miniseries when that came out in like the year 2000, and it's okay. I only watched it once, never wanted to go back. Grew up on the 1984 movie, and then I tried to read the book. When I was in college, I tried to be smart and read the book, and I proved how not smart I was, because I got 91 pages in, and I still remember that. It was page 91, and I went, I can't do this. And I was done. And so I was excited because it looked good, but I was surprised how much it drew me in. And then, like Al said, I've watched it probably about 2.5 more times since then. And each time I put it on, it's like I get immersed in it again. I pick up more the next time than I did the last time, and I'm able to follow it each time. And it just, I get more out of it every time. I'm like, there it is. That's the epic storytelling that I've actually been waiting for. Like, for me, it was a surprise because it became one of my favorite movies of this year. I just couldn't believe how much I liked it.
Well, to add some perspective here, Seth Draven, which all you guys know is, he's part of Film Trigger. He's my boy. He says, as someone who's never read the book or seen the older movie, I enjoyed this movie. I'll definitely need to rewatch, but the cinematography alone makes this movie worth it on the big screen. And he saw it on the big screen. Like Seth, I think he went by himself to the movie theaters. I can't remember.
I would. It's worth it.
But he saw it on like the ultra big, like not just the regular IMAX, but it's like even bigger than the IMAX.
Oh wow.
So like but this is now him like being seasoned on it, but his first reaction is the same as mine was. And even though he did see it on the big screen, he just didn't get it. He didn't understand what was going on for the first, part of this movie. And that, but hold on, what we like, that's what we're talking about.
Yes,
what we like.
I
100% agree with you guys. This movie is visually stunning. I love Hans Zimmer's score to this, and there are some good character or cast choices. Like I thought everyone did a great job. in their roles. I got a little sketchy about Aquaman there for a second, but
Do you know?
but he came back and he delivered it right. You got the Jason Momoa with the beard, and then without the beard. And without the beard, he nailed it.
I just want to say something about Jason Momoa. When he was casting it, I was worried. It's not that I dislike him. It's the same with like Dwayne Johnson and them kind of action hero guys. I like them in their movies. I love, like, whenever The Rock's in something, I'm going to watch it because I know I'm going to enjoy it. But when Momoa was cast, I was like, I don't know if this is going to, will it fit? And I'm not even ashamed to say this. He was my favorite thing in terms of the characters. He was one of my favorite characters in it because I just wasn't expecting it. I don't know. I just really
his dynamic,
liked
the way he sacrificed himself, and like how he
Mate,
thought he was so down, then he came back and did one last hurrah.
He
that was
like a boss,
that was
and
great.
I was just like,
that's definitely on what I like about this movie. And then, as I said in my review, about the second act started piquing my interest. I'm like, oh, that's a fun part. Okay, now they're doing the Star Wars Senate meeting hearings again. That's how I considered just a lot of gobbledygook that I didn't understand. But then the third act drew me in.
Don't ever watch the 84 movie, Steve. Just don't ever watch it.
I might need to watch it just for perspective.
No, mate, that will, if you thought, honest to God, bro, if you found this kind of crazy, I suppose you could call it like the original movie version it's worse. It's bizarre, mate.
Yeah, I hear it's bad, but just
like you will get a lot from it though. Like you will, if you like watching this one and going back, you'll hear a lot of things said, and you'll be like, "Oh, that's that. Oh, it'll make a bit more sense." But it's just a bit of a mess, that first one. It really is.
Right. Well, just to kind of finish up what I like about this real quick, is the fact that even though most of the movie, and even at one part in time, I was thinking about turning the movie off and just being like, no review for this one. But then it drew me in, and like now I am curious for the second movie. Like I'm curious to see what happens, because I feel like I just got into an actual storyline that I wanted to follow, and then they're like done. I'm like, oh shoot, okay. But with that being said, just so I can have transparency with the audience, the people who don't already know or haven't seen my review, I knew nothing about Dune going into it. Never read the book, never saw the movie. I didn't even know it came out before Star Wars and so in my perspective, as a regular movie goer, who didn't study about the movie he went to see, which most regular movie goers don't do, I saw it as a copy and paste of Star Wars, and Avatar thrown in there. I didn't realize how much older it was, and that's actually came out like 68. The book came out in 68.
Yeah.
So, but that's still a fair perspective. So I just want everyone to know that's where I'm coming from.
I think you're right though, Steve. I think a lot of people would have watched this. Like my folks watched it, and my dad was the same. He was like, "Well, it's just a copy of Star Wars." And I'm like, no, it's not. But right. You're right. I think a lot of people don't know that. I think that shows you just how influential those books were, if you really.
Right. Now that I know that, like, I wish I would have known that watching this movie. I wish I would have had that information, because then I wouldn't be sitting here going, well, why is it just like copy and paste? I would have been like, oh, that's where Star Wars got that from.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
That's the difference of perspective I would have had. So moving along here, because I don't want to stay too long on one subject, because I know Durbin's got a time constraint here, and I want to be respectful to that. Let's dive into what we are on the fence about when it comes to this film. Ramon, can you scrape something out here?
There's only one thing in this movie, and it's more me just picking at something, and it's not really a big deal, to be honest with you. I wasn't as, you're going to hate me for this, Durbin, I wasn't as into the Baron as much as I was in the original movie, because the Baron in the original is disgusting. Like, honestly, Stevie, the guy, if you think the Baron was bad in this, the one in the original is repulsive. He's got boils all over his face. I mean, he's disgusting. Yeah. And I think because I had that image in my head when I went to watch this, I think Stellan Skarsgård is incredible in the movie. I think he's brilliant as the Baron, but it's just because I've seen a really, really repulsive version of it. I kind of, in my head, I'm thinking the other guy was a lot more disgusting than this guy. This one's more, I think he's more darker and sinister, and he reminded me a lot of general or the colonel in Apocalypse Now, Marlon Brando.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't know what it was, but the way his mannerisms were, and he was very in the shadows all the time, and all of that sort of stuff. His performance was brilliant, but that's the only thing in the movie, because I think the Baron left such an impact on me as a kid. Like, he terrified me as a kid.
Awesome. Did you have something to say, Al? I thought.
But sorry,
No,
sorry.
I was going to chime in and agree with Ramon. I think the same thing. I think that the visual impact of the Baron in the original, which I did not like, by the way.
Yeah.
But I think the visual impact of the Baron in the original was much more powerful. And honestly, I was a little disappointed, when with how they portrayed him. I think performance wise, he was great, but he wasn't as disgusting. I mean, Ramon is right. He is disgusting.
Like, he's just like he makes you like, like the dude in Sin City, the yellow dude in Sin City, who's all creepy and gooey.
Oh, that dude, yeah.
He just kind of he just really creeped me out. Whereas this one I was more afraid of him, like as an adult watching it. I was more afraid of him, like he's a scary man. But it wasn't like I wasn't repulsed by him. It's just a different kind of fear of the character, I guess. But it's not even a big deal. I'm not saying it in a negative way, because I still say this was 10 out of 10. Like, I still think he was brilliant. But it's just I feel the other guy freaked me out a little bit more. That was all.
Right. Yeah. Well, it has that nostalgic fear. Involved with it.
See, for me, I'm going to disagree with you both and say the Baron from the 84 version was so cartoonish and outlandish that it lost its impact for me completely. I mean, every time I watched it, even as a kid, I always thought, this is the weirdest thing I have ever seen. And then that weird 80s rock star dude who was like his partner, and then the other guy that is, I don't know, like they were weird. And there was no impact of fear for me. There was no impact of what a villain. And yeah, he was gross. And I had those moments where I'm like, the boils and all that stuff is gross. But to me, he was just like a redheaded clown. And the Baron and this one was grounded and sinister, and it's like, now there's a Baron to be feared. I mean, I get what you're saying. There's some weird things about the one from 84 that can impact your head in a weird way, but it never scared me. It never terrified me, and I saw him more as a Jim Carrey outlandish clown type thing. Ooh. And this Baron, I really saw as
he's more scary. Yeah,
is gross, because when he's talking to Oscar Isaac at the end. And, he's like chewing his food like a cow chewing cud. I'm like, that's kind of gross. But also, I mean, he just picked up that one dude by his hair and then like cut him open. And I'm like,
the doctor,
I'm not messing with this Baron. Like, so for me, it's the opposite. Like the 84 Baron leaves no positive impact on me. This Baron was one that I would fear.
That's what I mean. I didn't say, I don't mean it in like I think it's because I watched it when I was younger. It's that image of a kid of when I watched it. It's like that. I don't know. He was one of the first sort of villains or something in a movie I saw as a kid that kind of grossed me out, where I looked at someone and I was like, I don't even want to look at that. It's nasty. And whereas this one now, watching this one as an adult, this guy's more scary. Like he's cold. He's so cold.
Yeah.
In this film.
Durbin. I actually completely forgot about him chewing his food, open mouth chewing.
Yeah,
I think that was one of the first points I was like, I want to turn this movie off, because I have a huge thing with people chewing loudly. Like, it just grosses me out, and what makes me want to punch babies. So like,
you know what my thing just like that was in this movie? Every time they spit, I can't handle spit. So when they spit to make water, or when they spit as they're greeting, I was sitting over there gagging. I was like, I can't handle this. We got to get past this real quick.
You know, when Javier Bardem
share your fluids.
When Javier Bardem done that at the beginning, and he meets Atreides, what's his name, Leo Atreides, and he spits, and he's like, and they all jump up, and he's like, no, it's like a greeting kind of thing, like a showing respect. This is what they do. And then he looked at him, and he went on to Bardem, and he done that groan, and just went, oh. And just sort of like looked away. I just burst out laughing, because it was so odd of a thing to do. I just thought it was wonderful. I really did.
Do you know who would have been great in this movie for that spit greeting?
Who?
Ace Ventura.
Oh gosh.
No.
Think about Ace Ventura 2. Remember the spit greeting?
You're trying to mock this film, Stevie.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wish I could have screen captured all three of you guys covering your face in disgust. I really enjoyed that moment.
That's fine.
Al, what were you on the fence about with this movie?
Did you say me? Sorry, you went out.
Yeah, what were you on the fence about with this movie?
So I was on the fence a little about some of the fight choreography. People raved about it a lot, but I thought it was just okay. And I'm also on the fence a little bit about how they dealt with the shield graphic.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really sure how you would have done it. I understand why they did it as they did because of how it works with a slower force as opposed to kind of, I guess,
a striking force.
Yeah. So I understand like the idea. I just wish, I don't know. I wish it could. I wish it looked a little more advanced, but at the same time, I feel like that Denis did it that way because that's kind of one of the core elements of the original. So you don't really want to, you don't want to move too much away from what that looked like.
Right.
But I was
well to piggyback with that, actually, Al, is I agree with you. You know, when it comes to visually speaking, this fights, it seemed a lot like a video game. Blue, blue, red, red, blue, blue, red. You know, it seemed a little cartoonish. But I was also listening to a radio show today, and they were talking about this movie. And even though I caught the concept when Jason Momoa said it's the slow blade that breaks the field or whatever. But I guess a lot of people didn't catch it because everyone that on the radio show I was listening to said they have no clue why it could be penetrated sometimes and not sometimes. So maybe that was glossed over for a lot of the general audience, you know, because no one on the show I was listening to knew what the heck was happening there. So, but yeah, that's a good observation, especially with the choreography, which is kind of like in your wheelhouse of interest, you know. Fighting. So I respect your view on that as well. Is there anything else that you're on the fence about?
I mean, that pretty much was it. I do, having never read the book, but having listened to the audio book, there were some things that were left out that I thought it would have been cool for them to put in. But
right. I got you. Durbin, I know you chimed in with what you were on the fence about a little bit, but I actually haven't given you your spot yet. So I just want to make sure if there's anything you didn't talk about already that you're on the fence about when it comes to this film.
Well, you know, the one thing is Jason Momoa shaving his beard. Like, he had a baby face, and I was really sad when he shaved his beard. It's like, why? Why do you have your beard in the opening part, but you don't have it here a little bit later? Just have the dang beard.
That was confusing. I was actually going to add that to my what I'm on the fence about, but I'll go deeper on that here in a minute.
It's funny because I do kind of mean it as a joke, but it's also kind of serious because Jason Momoa's beard is just kind of part of who he is, and you know, it's already established in the movie with him having that beard. So why shave it? He'd look kind of strange to me without it, but that's like a minor thing. I will piggyback off the shield thing though. In terms of the visual, I liked it, but I'm also comparing it to the 1984 movie where it's the weird robo blocks. It was just terrible in that. But I loved the concept, and I caught this concept from the beginning. The slow blade gets through, and then you see that again when that little mosquito bug thingy is between Oscar Isaac's shoulder blades. And that scene was really intense when he's trying to get it, but you know that spot on your back that you can't scratch no matter how much you want to, and it itches really bad. Kind of made that really intense when he couldn't get back there and he couldn't get it, but it's slowly piercing the shield because the slow blade pierces. Yet when they're fighting on the steps, they all pierce those shields pretty quick and pretty easy. And so it's like, when did you slow blade that? So there's like little moments like that where I'm like, well, I didn't see, I get it. This is a fight. I'm sure somehow you guys got through, and we need you to get through because House Atreides needs to lose here. So I get it. I'm on the fence about it, but it's one of those things that I noticed, and my wife brings it up every time we get to that scene. I'm like, yeah, it's true. Nobody's moving slow here. Everybody's moving fast. They're fast, hard hits. It should glance right off that shield.
Yeah, that's a great example. Piggybacking off what Al said. Again, I'm going to a lot of piggybacking going on here because you brought up Jason Momoa, and I am definitely on the fence with him. Number one, I liked him without the beard because it didn't make me think Jason Momoa. It made me think somebody else. I'm tired of seeing Jason Momoa walk into a movie and be Jason Momoa. You know, like I said it in my review, he's just wanting to high five everybody and go have a beer. And that's fine for some movies. I kind of wish they would have brought him in without the beard in the beginning and just I probably would have looked at him completely different when I first saw him, but they did not explain the beard change. And I was very curious about that. I was wondering unless I missed it, but I don't see why they didn't explain him shaving his beard randomly throughout the movie. Another thing I'm on the fence about when it comes to this film is obviously what I've said before from my mindset watching it. As I was watching it, I was very much on the fence with this is something I've seen before. Now, if I did know that going into this movie, I'm not so sure I would have a different opinion, because even though, like, tentatively speaking, the book came out before all these things, I've still seen it many times over and over again. So it's very hard to like draw that line of, well, can it not stick to the true story just because other people have done it, after the book. But as a moviegoer, I'm on the fence with just that. I've seen a lot of this stuff before, almost verbatim, like it just threw me for a loop. So anything else that anybody else is on the fence about before we dive into what we don't like about this film?
That's really it for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
What we don't like about Dune.
This will be a hard section for me.
Ramon, can you think of anything?
Okay. One thing I really, really hated about this movie, and I think this will probably be the image I'll always have of this movie, is it was too short. That's it.
Really?
Yeah, I wanted another 2 hours, man. That's just me, because I loved it.
Jeez.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I look at it the same way I looked at the Justice League. Like, I was getting so into it, and it was just, oh damn it. Even if the part 2 movie was out in January, I'd be like, great. But it was one of those movies I was enjoying so much. I just didn't want it to end, because like I've said before, we get so many movies in general, your blockbuster movies every year. They're kind of the same, like, we love the Marvel, we love DC, we all love all that stuff, but we're kind of getting roughly the same sort of thing. It's superheroes or it's a crime movie. This was kind of a lot. I know I love Blade Runner, and some of you guys don't, but it was just something that was completely different. And because I was enjoying something that was completely different, I was like, damn, I don't want this to end, because how long will it be until we get another one? And I didn't know if we would even get the sequel. So I was just like, this is like a teaser, that's it. I just wanted more. So
but we are getting a sequel announced today. It's confirmed.
I can't believe it, mate. I'm so happy.
They've greenlit the sequel. Durbin, what are some negative aspects that make you not like certain parts of this movie or whatever?
I have to say, maybe, and we'll see what part 2 does. Part 2 might change this, but for right now, with just part 1 as it is, probably the most negative thing was when I went back to rewatch the 84 movie, just to kind of compare it side by side, because there were still a few story elements I didn't quite catch, and I was feeling a little behind. So when I watched the 84 movie, the opening is so terrible, but one of the things it does, though, is it does this awful exposition where you meet the Emperor and he lays out his entire plan. So really, what's interesting about that is it makes it very clear why the Emperor recalled the House Harkonnen. It makes it very clear why he chose House Atreides to come to Dune and why he wanted to create this war. And it made it very clear why they thought Paul Atreides was a threat and why the Bene Gesserit, the witch people, were sent to him to do the whole box experiment. So even though it was done bad, because it's just a bunch of exposition dump told in that 80s cornball style, nonetheless, it actually kind of set the stage.
It pretty much tells you everything. Yeah, it does. It tells you that's what I mean. Like, for Stevie watching that, it would give everyone like that. Oh, right, okay, that's what everything's about. And then everything going forward would have just made sense. Yeah, you're right.
Well, and I do wonder if they could have done that a little bit better. I mean, when the Bene Gesserit and Jessica are having their conversation back and forth about crossing bloodlines to create the Messiah, I had to watch the 1984 version to get the concept that they didn't want Paul to be the Messiah. They wanted Paul to be a girl so they can marry that girl off to House Harkonnen so that they could breed a child. That child would be this Messiah, but that child would be a Messiah controlled by the witches. And this story is so complex though. So in that 84 movie, they just have to exposition dump that and condense it all. And so you don't like how they're giving it to you. Whereas this one, you could breathe more and it has more time. So maybe part 2 will dive into this stuff that I'm talking about and will correct this problem.
It might even open up maybe with the Emperor, and it might have that sort of scene. Maybe yeah.
But if I had to pick a negative for part 1, with all this time they had to breathe, to go back to the 84 version and to find them kind of explaining certain concepts a little bit more clearly, I was a little bit disappointed with that when I went back.
Good point.
Perfect. How about you, Al? What are some aspects you don't like about this movie?
Man, I mean, I really liked so much about it. And I guess if I did have a negative about it, is I wish that they could have found a way to add some of the dialogue, which I thought was really important and powerful, that they took out. And I have no idea how they would do that. But I wish that they could have, especially some of the dialogue that went back and forth. Even this is a small section. Some of the dialogue that took place before the Bene Gesserit meets what's his name? What's the boy's name?
Paul.
Yeah, before he meets Paul, before she meets Paul, and also there's some dialogue that they took out that happened when he was with the taking the test with his hand in the box, and they cut that out as well. So though it kind of little things like that, I wish they were there, because I just feel like they're pretty impactful. But at the same time, I mean, the movie has a runtime of like 2 hours and 50 something minutes. So I feel like, I guess they shaved that off to maybe lessen the runtime of the movie, but I feel like it's important. And I will say, I would rather them have left it out than to try and cover those bases with like some exposition or something like that. So I don't know, but there were pieces of dialogue that I wish were there that there wasn't. That's not that big of a deal, though.
No, fair enough. It's what you didn't like, so I respect it. You guys have said a lot of what I was already going to say, which is what sucks about going last every time. But yeah, I 100% agree, Durbin. I wish I would have gotten a better explanation. I wish they would have made this movie pretty much the same, but also add in the element of, let's also make it for people who don't know the books or haven't seen the movie or don't know any of the culture of Dune. Then maybe it would have hit me a little bit better. I would have been able to grasp onto what they were talking about. There's just so many random names I've never heard before, and just a lot of this lore. And I'm just like, I don't know why. Stop throwing things at me, please. And it got exhausting. But then it led up to this amazing ending, or amazing, what I was considering a climax, and then it just severed it. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. All right. Well, you got me for a good, part of the movie, but
Steve, my mom said the same thing. Like, she loves that 1984 movie. Right. I don't know why. I can't stand that movie.
I do love that movie a hell of a lot. I really do, but not I don't love it in the way like, oh my God, this is such an amazing movie, because it's got a lot of problems. You're right. It's got a lot of what? But for some reason,
my mom loves it in that way, that she thinks it's such an amazing movie. But everything Steve just said, my mom said. She was loving the movie the whole way through. But as soon as it ended, she goes, "What? You were just ramping up." Like, she got really mad. And I understand that cutoff point. I do, because it's building to him being accepted in the Fremen.
Yeah, the Fremen.
Him being accepted into them. I get it. And him making his first kill, which actually is not about the fact that he took a life. It's about the fact that he took his own life in doing that. He had to die to himself. I mean, that was the whole thing about the visions. Paul Atreides died in that moment, and Paul Muad'Dib was born in that moment. So the Messiah arose as his old self died. And so it's like, all of that was interesting, and then it ends.
Yeah. You know what? Now that you bring up that final battle, I'm going to add that to what I don't like about this movie, because number one, it goes with what Al was saying, the choreography of the fight scenes. It was very just underwhelming to me.
Yeah.
And number two, maybe you guys can explain it. I didn't catch it. I could not figure out why the guy challenged him. Like, it seemed like such low hanging fruit of what I got from it. Like, he tried to challenge his mom but he's like, who's her protector? I don't know. I can't remember why he wanted to fight Paul. Like,
well, the mom showed off that guy who's their leader as weak, and I think that was one of the reasons.
Oh,
because she bested. That was one. But Al, you read the book.
The audio book, and I cannot remember. I can't remember that. You're talking about when they
very end. I mean, I would assume that it was just that it's like a balance of power thing between them, because obviously they've come to their planet. The Fremen don't really want anyone there in the first place. They've always been slaves to like the Harkonnens and stuff like that. The Atreides come in, so they're very like that with them. They've then been slaughtered by the Harkonnens, and then you find this new, I suppose, king to be your replacement for his dad who's been killed, and the mother is kind of like, well, I can't see they're not going to show him any respect. That's kind of how I looked at it, because they were slaves under them. So they don't want them there. It's their planet. So that's how I visualized it. And I kind of thought, I didn't know if there'd be a fight or not, but it weren't going to be easy sailing, because remember Duncan Idaho, Jason Momoa said earlier on about these people are great, but it's not going to be easy to sort of, get in with these people and that sort of thing. And I think, I don't know, that's just kind of how I visualized that end. I thought there was going to be some sort of confrontation between them, but I didn't, that's kind of how I see it.
Right. Well, still, the confrontation that happened, even though I kind of missed exactly what sparked it, it was an underwhelming, battle for me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. For me, now that you pointed out, I'll probably go back and go, yeah, that choreography is kind of weak. But the reason for me that ending was strong is because it's not so much about the battle. It's like what I said earlier. It's about the kill. And
the internal battle.
Yes. And so when he has that vision of himself dying, and that witch's voice is doing that little voiceover saying, Paul Atreides must die, go with that flow. Like, his real struggle wasn't the fact he knew he wasn't going to physically die. He could actually see the fight in that future and knew how to fight that guy. What was going to die was his old life and everything that he knew. And I think for that reason, I thought that was intense, not for the fight itself, but for him laying down his own life to take up this destiny that just a few scenes before, when he was in the tent with his mom and he saw like that holy war unfold in his mind and he freaked out. Like, this is that moment of him going, okay, fine, I'm accepting that destiny, which again, the 84 movie did a better job talking about the Messiah's role, that the Emperor has put the entire galaxy into darkness. And it's this Messiah's role to bring it into the light. And hopefully they'll get more into that in part 2. But part 1, in terrible expedition dumps in the 1984 version, they did a better job explaining why his role was so crucial.
They did. And that is very true. Like, they do a good job of kind of filling in those gaps. But I think that fight was effective, really, Durbin, or along the same lines that you said. And I thought really that fight was helpful for him kind of recognizing his purpose or stepping into his calling, so to speak. But also, my interpretation of that, and I could be wrong here, but it was helpful for the Fremen as well to see, okay, is this guy who we really think he is? And if he gets killed in this fight,
you're right. Maybe it's the case that guy that stood up to him. Maybe that was the case. This guy didn't believe that he's who he claimed he is.
Right.
Now, let me ask you this. Am I right in this? The guy that he killed in that fight, is that the guy that Paul was seeing in his visions where the voice was saying, he's the friend, follow the friend? Is that the same guy?
It was. And that's why I was disappointed when he killed him, because I was like, what? Why is that guy dying? I didn't want
there's more symbolism there, because that friend became the gateway into the Fremen, the gateway into that way of life. Follow the friend. That's what that fight was.
You just blew Ramon's mind.
and that was one of the thoughts I had. Yeah.
Really, it was a sacrifice in order for him to gain.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, life for a life. It was the only way. And
I just I still just didn't want that guy to. I liked him.
I liked him too. But then the Outworlder chooses the desert. That's the other shocking thing. Like, here's his mother saying, get him a ship, get him off world, because earlier he'd come up with that plan. Let me go marry one of the Emperor's daughters or whatever. But now here he is saying, no, I see it clearly now. My path is the desert. So not only does he win this fight, but he chooses the path of this Messiah because now he's choosing the desert.
I forgot to actually mention one more thing that I loved, and I can't remember the actual quote, but when they're on the ship with the two Harkonnens, they're tied up, and there's the creepy one who you can't hear, and he says,
Yes.
there's a little boy. Or he says something really creepy. That guy freaks me out, man.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad he was the first one killed myself.
Yeah,
I don't like this guy.
That's, to me, that's the Harkonnens. Like, they're repulsive, mate. But again, brilliant characters, just brilliant characters.
All right, well, gentlemen, is there anything else you want to add before we do our grading here? Nope.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, Ramon, let's start with you. What do you give this movie in a letter grading?
I'd go straight A plus, straight up. Great, brilliant, fantastic.
That was wonderful. Bravo. I loved that. Oh, it was great.
All right. To give some clarity here, I actually made that before I asked him because it was really late when I made that last night. So
you were really going on faith. He's going to give it an A plus.
Yeah. I'll just quickly say, honestly, guys, like, bottom line, if you've not seen the movie, the only way I can describe it to people that have not seen it and they're questioning whether they're going to like it, I kind of view this as a Game of Thrones science fiction Blade Runner kind of visuals movie. That's the only way if I could describe it to someone who's never ever seen it and they're thinking about going to watch it. If you're not into any of that sort of stuff, I don't know if you'll like it. But because I really do like that stuff, I couldn't get enough of it. And considering it was a movie I was really not looking forward to, I think I was just very, very pleasantly surprised, and I really cannot wait for the second one.
Interesting, because Durbin actually didn't like Blade Runner, but you really like this one. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That is 100% correct. Yeah.
All right. Well, Durbin, after everything that we've shared today, what grade do you give this movie?
I'm going to give it an A minus.
That was wonderful. Bravo. I loved that. Oh, it was great.
And the only reason for the minus is because certain things were explained a little bit better in the 84 movie. So maybe part 2 will give me the stuff that I'm looking for and, make it more solid.
That was a top shout, though, for what you said about the introduction to the other one with.
Yeah,
definitely. I hope they put something like that in the second one. That would really, really help.
Like now, I want to go watch the 1984 movie just so I can get the exposition that I need, and then rewatch this movie.
Oh, you should. Oh. Yeah, you should totally do that.
Al, I appreciate you joining us today, man. Tell us what grade do you give this movie?
So I give it an A.
That was wonderful. Bravo. I loved that. Oh, it was great.
I think Ramon makes a good point. I think that it may not be for everyone, especially if you're not familiar with some of the source material. But having said that, like I think the types of folks that would like this that might not be familiar with the source of people are the people who like if you take Star Trek, for instance, and you like a Next Generation, or maybe even a Deep Space Nine, because the Next Generations, those episodes tend to be a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more kind of cerebral in their execution. And this movie has a lot of elements, and it's designed to kind of pull you in and to make you think. It's not just about the visual spectacle. It very much is about the relationships, the houses. Really, like Ramon said, kind of just like a sci-fi Game of Thrones, without maybe some of the intensity, so to speak, of Game of Thrones. But yeah, it's not just about a spectacle amongst the stars. It very much is a story-driven movie, and if that's not good for you, if you need pace, if you need Wookiees and Vader and lightsabers and Yoda, then
yeah, that's it. It's not going to be for everyone. Yeah,
right. And I'm a prime example of that. Again, I said it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times already. My biggest issue is that I don't need the Wookiees. I don't need the lightsabers. I just need you to give me a reason why they're not there. Or that's a poorly way to explain it. I just need a reason to grab onto so I can know what the story is. But again, I watched this movie. The first part of it, not a clue what they're talking about. Lost interest. It hooked me on the third act, but overall, my first experience with it fell short. And when I put my review out, people got triggered, like
Ooh.
film triggered. They just did not like. I again, between my peers on the YouTube realm and even at my gigs, I was getting hassled. I was getting storylines being told to me. Like I was getting like the history lesson 101 on everything. But my overall, still from my first perspective, the first time I watched this movie, I give it a C-.
It wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good,
It
though.
could have been a lot better.
I didn't really like it.
That's higher than what I thought you were going to give it.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be worse than that.
I'm actually proud of you. That was pretty good compared to what I thought was coming.
Well, that's what I gave it on my actual review too. But you know, it's now I haven't had a chance to rewatch it. I planned on rewatching it before we did this live stream, but I just had no time to do it. But once I go to rewatch it, number one, I will take Durbin's advice. I will go maybe skim through the 1984 and get that exposition that I need so I know what world I'm immersing myself into.
Watch the 1984 film from the beginning to when the witches leave after the hand test. That should give you all the exposition you need.
Perfect. That's awesome. That's great. Thank you. And then I'm going to rewatch this movie with a different lens on. And if I actually enjoy it a lot better, then I will do an actual spoiler review and maybe change my grade. We'll see. I can't make any guarantees. I might give it a worse grade. Not a clue. So we'll see. Everybody, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up in sort of an open discussion setting before we take off here?
There's one thing that's baffled me as well. Like, I'm not sure I grasp it in my own head that when I said like the Game of Thrones thing, it kind of is like that scour thing because there's so many intertwining stories and stuff. That's why I'm a little bit confused why more people... I know it's got a massive fan base, but I'm surprised more people don't like it because Game of Thrones was so big. And when I watched the first season of that, it's the same as you probably felt watching this because it's like House Stark, House Lannister, like what it's that thing of like, what, I don't know what's going on. So because that was such a big thing, will it be the case that when the second movie comes out, it explodes and it's massive? I don't know. I hope so. But it just surprises me. I just thought, because I do believe that this explained things very, very well, and that was one of my big concerns. Like going into the movie, was I was thinking, is everyone going to watch this and be, I don't get it. But I'm surprised a lot of people do like it, and as I said, like I said earlier on, I'm just over the moon. To me, this is the same feeling as if they announced like a new Justice League, which we're not probably going to get, you know, and for this to happen so quick, I was like, yes, because I just didn't think we would get it. I'm really, really happy that we're actually getting a second part. That's all I can say.
Awesome. Yeah. And again, even though the movie didn't resonate with me, I am intrigued to watch the sequel when it comes out. So,
well, it's funny, Steve, because what you said right there, that's Blade Runner 2049 for me. That movie did not resonate with me at all. But I mean, I could appreciate the visuals. I love the music and the sound design. And if they ever made a third one, I would go watch it just because I respected how that Blade Runner 2049 was made. It didn't resonate with me, but whatever.
Right.
Yeah. I think when it comes to Blade Runner, to me, even the old Blade Runner, the story is a bit convoluted. And I either that or I don't have enough gray matter in my head, but I didn't really get it, and plus I don't really like cyberpunk. So and
right,
Blade
there you
Runner
go.
has that.
That's it.
So,
all right, well, gentlemen, again, thank you so much. Anybody watching, anybody who enjoyed this show, or if you didn't enjoy it, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you like these guys for the way they talk and the way they explain themselves, please go visit their channels. You got Ramon from Hit or Miss TV. You got Chris Durbin from the channel Durbania, and you have Al from Dark Side Reviews. The links to all of their channels is in the description below. Please subscribe. Please follow these guys. They know what they're talking about way more than I do. So if you join my channel, then these people will blow your minds away. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and head out, guys. Again, thank you so much for joining me. And fellas, you know the drill. If you want to stay for a little after hours chat, meet me backstage. All right. See you guys and stay trigger happy, my friends. Peace.